Hello everyone, in the last video we built our PERN to-do app step by step. Today I'm going to show you how to deploy it. We will host both the backend and the frontend on render and use Neon for the database. I'll walk you through setting up the environment variables, configuring the database connection and making sure the frontend talks to the backend correctly. We will also connect to Neon through pgAdmin to manage and test our database. By the end, you will have the whole app live and ready to share with just a link. So let's get started. Okay guys, so for that, let's open our terminal by pressing Ctrl and backtick. And let's go to the backend folder and let's install the following dependency, which will be .env. We need it to get access to the environment variables, because right now inside index.js we have this 5000 value, but for the better practice, it should be inside a .env file, and from that file we should get access to it and display it. Okay, so let's install this package. Great. And now inside backend folder, let's create a file called .env, and here let's create that variable which will be port, and it will be equal to 5000. So let's save this file. Now let's go to index.js and let's close our terminal. Okay, and now let's import .env from .env and let's see .env.config. If we hover over, as you can see, it loads .env file contents into process.env by default. So now we can create a variable called port, and we can say that it will be equal to process.env.port, which is this variable, or in case of some problems, it will be equal to 5000. So now let's change this hard-coded value with our variable, and the same should be done in this console log. So let's just accept it. Great. Okay, and now inside frontend folder, we can create one more file, and it will also be .env file. Okay, let's say that the name of the variable will be vit_api_URL, and it will be equal to http localhost 5000. Later on render.com, when we deploy our frontend, we're gonna change this value to the URL of our backend that we will deploy. But for now, it will be like this. So let's save it. And here we say vit because we use vit. So that's why the variable should start with vit_. And now inside this source folder, we can create a file called api.js. We need this file to store our base URL, which will be this vit_api_URL. So we need it to store our base URL. So let's say export const API URL will be equal to import.meta.env and then the name of our variable. And we can remove this part because we don't need it. Okay, so let's save this file. And now we need to change these hard-coded values. Okay, so we need to change this part. So for that, let's do the following. Let's import API URL from api.js. Don't forget to write .js in the end. And now we need to change these URLs. So I will do it very quickly. So as you can see, I changed the hard-coded values with our API URL. And as you can see, now it looks like this. Okay, so let's save this file. Now what I suggest to do is to take care of our database, and then we will come back to this db.js file. But for now, let's take care of our database. And as I said, to host our database, we're going to use Neon. So let's go to the official website. So Neon is a serverless PostgreSQL database platform, and it can be used to host our database in the cloud. Okay, so let's log in. So I logged in using my GitHub account, and now it is telling me to give a name for this project. So since we are working with to-do app, I will say PERN-to-do-app, and Postgres version will be 17. And for the cloud service provider, we can leave it as default. And for the region, I will also leave it as default. But as you can see, it says select the region closest to your application. But I will leave it as default. So let's click Create Project. And as you can see, here we can connect to our database. So let's click Connect and it will give us a connection string. So let's copy this connection string. And inside .env file, inside backend folder, we can create a new variable called database_URL, and let's paste our connection string from neon.com. So let's save this file. And now to be able to connect to neon.com, to be able to host our database and to be able to migrate it, I'm gonna use pgAdmin. Okay, so here we need to click servers, we need to right click servers, then register, and then server. For the name, I will say neon, and then as you can see, either host name or service must be specified. Let's go to the connection tab, and here we need to provide host name or address. So for that, let's go to our .env file, and this will be our host. So let's copy it and let's paste it right here. For the port, we can leave it as it is because PostgreSQL uses it by default and Neon also works on this port. For the maintenance database, we can say neondb, and for the username, it will be neondb_owner, and we need to provide password. So our password is this password. The name of our database is this, and the username is this. Okay, so let's provide our password here, and let's say save password, so we don't need to provide it every single time when we want to work with this server. So let's click save, and as you can see, now we have two servers and one of them is Neon. So let's open it and let's click databases, and here we have our neondb. Great. We can also click Postgres, and as you can see, neon/Postgres database connected. Now, if I go to DB, and if I right click it, then if I say query tool, and if I run this command, let's say select everything from to do. Let's execute the script. As you can see here, I have these to-dos. So I want to migrate them to my Neon database because I don't want to lose these data. Imagine that here you have a lot of data, and of course you want to save your data. You don't want to lose it, and you want to take your data and you want to migrate it to Neon in our case. So we're gonna do migration. So for that, we need to do the following. Let's right click this to-do DB, then backup. Then you need to choose a place where you want to have this file, which will be our backup. Okay, so we need to specify it. So as you can see, I provided this path, and we're gonna have this .sql file inside our PERN to-do app folder. And for the format, we can leave it as it is. And for the data options, here, we don't want to save our owner because later when we're gonna do restoring inside Neon database, there can be some problems when creating a backup, and when restoring, we don't need to specify the owner. The database will automatically be linked to the user you are connected with, which is neondb_owner. To get rid of any errors, we don't need to save an owner, okay? And everything else can be left as it is. So let's click backup, and process started and process is completed. So now, as you can see, we have our PERN-to-do-SQL file. Now we need to migrate our data to Neon server, okay? And then inside neon.com, we will be able to see our data. So let's right click neondb. Let's say restore, and here we need to provide this file. So let's do it. So here I provided this file, and as for data options, again, we don't want to save the owner because I have already said why we want to do this. And now let's click restore, and process has started. It's gonna take some time, and as you can see, process has completed. Now if we go to neon.com, we should see these data. So let's do it. So now let's close this window. Now let's say tables. And as you can see here, we have our data. That is great because now we have hosted our database using Neon. And now we have our database in the cloud. That's great. Now let's open NeonDB, then schemas, then inside public, as you can see, we have tables and we have a to-do table. And this to-do has the following columns, which are to-do ID, description, and completed. And now let's right-click to-do, then query tool. And now let's say select everything from to-do. Let's execute the script. And as you can see, here we have our data. That is great. So as you can see here, I am inside NeonDB, and here I am inside ToDoDB. And from both these places, I can write this command and get the data that I need. Okay, now we have our connection string, and we need to make some changes inside db.js. So first of all, let's import .env from .env. And let's say .env.config. We need to do it because what we're gonna do next is that we want to get rid of all these fields. And let's say connection string, it will be equal to process.env.database URL. And also we want to provide SSL. So here we import .env from .env so that we make sure that we will be able to get access to this database URL correctly. Because if you don't provide it, you can run into a problem when this variable will be undefined. So that's why here we say import .env from .env, and by writing this, we make sure that we always get this variable. Okay, then when it comes to this SSL, so SSL stands for Secure Sockets Layer. It is a protocol that encrypts the connection between our server and the database, okay? And we need it to securely transmit data, especially when using a cloud database like Neon, okay? And we need to say the following. We need to say that if we are in production, we need to reject unauthorized. So we need to say false. But if we are doing it locally, we don't need to reject any unauthorized. So for that, inside .env file, we can have one more variable, which will be node.env, and it will be equal to development. So let's save it. And now we need to make some changes inside db.js. So we need to say the following. Let's say process.env. So as you can see here, we have an error because we need to remove this curly brace. So let's remove it, and let's also remove this comma. Okay, so we need to set SSL only in production. Okay, and here, if node.env is production, it uses reject unauthorized to be false to allow a secure connection without strict certificate checking. Okay, otherwise, if node.env is equal to development, SSL is disabled for simplicity. So SSL is disabled, that's why we have false. It is for simplicity. So by writing this, we ensure secure cloud connections in production while keeping local development easy. So let's save this file, and that should be it. Now we need to push this code to GitHub, but before that, as you can see, we have .env file and it is green, but it should be gray because we don't want to push this file to GitHub. And also we don't need this .sql file anymore, so we can delete it. And inside .gitignore file, we need to say .env. So let's save it. Okay, and now this .env isn't included, and this one will not be pushed to GitHub as well. So that should be it. Let's push this code to GitHub. I will open my terminal using Ctrl and backtick, and now let's clear this terminal, and I will say git add and dot, so that I will add all these changes. Then for the commit, I will say, let's say git commit, and for the message, let's say preparation for deployment. Okay, so let's press enter. Great. And now let's push our changes by saying git push. Great. But as you can see, I was inside the backend folder, so that's why I didn't push these files from the frontend folder. So we can fix it. So let's do it. Here now let's go up and then let's go to the frontend folder and let's do exactly the same steps. And let's push it. Okay, and again guys, as you can see, this .gitignore file is still right here. It is modified, but it isn't pushed. So the best thing that we should be right in the root, git add all the files, then let's say git commit, let's say preparation, and let's say git push. Okay, that should be it. So let's refresh this page. Now here we have our actual code, which is relevant. Okay guys, so the fact that first of all I pushed the changes inside backend and then inside frontend and then in the root can be useful to you, so that you can always understand that not only you can write it in the root, but you can also write it inside backend folder, then inside frontend and in the root. But for the sake of this tutorial, you can just write this command, like you can say git add, git commit and git push right from this path without going inside backend and frontend. Okay, I think that it is fine. Now let's go to render. So if you don't have an account, of course you need to create one, but I already have. So I will go to dashboard. I will sign in to render using GitHub. Okay, so from here, as you can see, we have this option to add a new service, and I will say web service. It will be for our backend. So from here we need to choose our projects, but as you can see I don't have PERN app, I have other projects. So for that, let's go to credentials, then let's choose our account, then let's say configure in GitHub, and from here we need to scroll all the way to the bottom, and from here we need to select our repositories to be able to see them on render.com. So let's click select repositories and let's find the one that we need. Here it is. It is PERN app, so let's click save. And as you can see, here it is. So let's choose it. As I said, it will be for our backend. So here I will say backend, and then the branch will be main, and then the root directory will be backend. And for the build command, let's say npm install. And for the start command, let's say npm start. And I want to choose this free option, and then we need to come to this environment variables, and let's click this button, and we need to add our .env file contents. So let's do it. So I just copied the content of .env file from backend folder, and for the node.env variable I will say production, and everything else can be left as it is. So let's click add variables. Great, and let's click deploy web service. So as you can see, it says available at your primary URL. So let's open it. It says that cannot get, but our backend is live. Okay, so here we have our backend URL. Great. Now let's take care of frontend. So let's go to dashboard. And as you can see here, we have our backend. Okay, and for the frontend, let's say static site. Let's choose our GitHub repository. Then for the name, I will say frontend, and root directory will be frontend. The build command will be npm run build, and the publish directory will be dist. Okay, and here we just need to say npm run build. We need to be careful. Okay, everything is correct. And here, as you remember, we had that variable which was vit underscore API underscore URL, and locally we had it that it was HTTP localhost 5000. But as you remember, I said that we're gonna take this backend URL, we're gonna copy it, and we're gonna paste it right here. But in the end, we shouldn't write a slash, because once I wrote a slash there and then I ran into a problem. Okay, so here is the URL that we need. So let's click deploy static site. So as you can see, our front end is live. So let's open it. And as you can see, here we have our tasks. So let's add some more tasks. Let's say go to college. Let's add it. And let's make it to be completed. But we have an error, failed to update to do. Let's find out why. So here we have that it has been blocked by course policy. So to fix that, we need to come to Backend folder. Then we need to find a file called index.js. And here we need to specify from what origins we expect to get requests. Okay. So here we need to make some changes. So let's edit this file and let's say the following. So here we need to find this course and let's say that for the origin, let's say origin to be equal to the URL of our frontend. So let's open it and here is the URL and let's provide it right here and it should be inside quotes. Okay, that should be it. Let's click commit changes and I will just accept it and let's click commit changes. Okay, and now what we need to do next is that let's go to dashboard, then let's go to backend, and here as you can see deploy has started because of our commit. So we need to wait for this deploying to finish. So as you can see deploy has finished. Now let's refresh our frontend and let's try to mark it as completed. And also I will open my console. So let's mark it as completed. And as you can see now we don't have any problems. Let's add something else here. Let's say buy a book. Let's add task. Let's mark it as completed. Let's refresh the page. Great. Now let's go inside Neon and let's click refresh schema. And here we should see our new tasks. As you can see, here we have our tasks. And now if we go inside pgAdmin and if I run this command inside Neon database and let's click execute script. As you can see, here we have our tasks. So that's it, guys. We have successfully deployed our project. I think that this video was really helpful. If you find this video helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel if you haven't done it yet. Thank you. I really appreciate it.